Silver just rejected a brutal sell-off and blasted higher, while gold exploded in a single session. But what I uncovered while digging through global data genuinely unsettled me. In Asia, industrial buyers are paying dramatically above international spot prices just to secure recycled silver, not investment bars, not freshly minted bullion, scrap, melted leftovers. And their main futures market hasn't even reopened yet. When it does, the reaction could be violent. What's happening right now isn't random volatility, it's pressure building beneath the surface. And when pressure builds in the metals market, it doesn't release quietly, it detonates. For years, investors were told the precious metals market was stable, liquid, and well supplied. Price dips were presented as proof of weakness. Rallies were dismissed as temporary spikes. But beneath that surface narrative, something structural has been shifting. And now the cracks are too large to ignore. The paper market for silver is enormous. Futures contracts represent vast amounts of metal exposure. Yet only a fraction of that exposure is backed by registered inventory actually available for delivery. As long as most traders settle in cash or roll contracts forward, the system functions. But when more participants begin demanding physical metal instead of paper settlement, stress appears instantly. That stress has been building for months. Delivery requests have surged. Vault inventories have declined steadily. Each time a contract holder stands for delivery, metal leaves, exchange warehouses, and often does not return. That reduces available supply for the next cycle. Over time, that math becomes uncomfortable. At the same time, industrial demand hasn't slowed. Solar manufacturing, electronics, medical applications, and advanced batteries all require silver. It is not optional in these sectors. It is essential. Unlike gold, which is primarily monetary and ornamental, silver is both monetary and industrial. That dual role amplifies supply tension when shortages appear. Now add geopolitics. Trade disputes, tariff escalations, and shifting legal frameworks create uncertainty in global commerce. When legal rulings disrupt trade agreements and political leaders respond with escalation rather than compromise, markets react. Capital seeks safety. Historically, gold benefits first. Silver follows, often more aggressively. The final layer of the problem is international fragmentation. Major exporting nations are tightening controls. Strategic material classifications limit who can ship refined metal abroad. Licensing requirements reduce the number of eligible exporters. When supply chains become restricted, global pricing disconnects begin to form. So here's the core issue. Paper exposure is massive. Physical inventory is shrinking. Industrial demand is rigid. Geopolitical risk is rising. Export controls are tightening. Individually, each factor creates pressure. Together, they create imbalance. And markets do not tolerate imbalance for long. What makes this moment different is not just rising prices. It's synchronization. Exchange inventory is declining. Industrial buyers paying premiums. Political tensions escalating. Major banks quietly accumulating physical metal. These events are happening simultaneously. When I reviewed the latest delivery statistics, one detail stood out. Large financial institutions weren't reducing exposure. They were taking metal, physical metal, not rolling contracts, not cash settling, accepting delivery. Banks do not warehouse commodities casually. They allocate capital strategically. When they choose metal over liquidity, it signals expectation of higher future value or tighter supply ahead. Then I examined international pricing spreads. In one of the world's largest industrial markets, recycled silver was commanding a premium above global spot. That is not a speculative bubble. That is a procurement signal. Scrap buyers only overpay when they fear future scarcity. Meanwhile, one of the largest futures exchanges in Asia had been closed for a national holiday. Traders there had not yet reacted to recent global volatility. When markets reopen after major macro developments, price discovery can be abrupt. Gaps form. Momentum accelerates. Overlay that with the gold-silver ratio compressing. Historically, when the ratio tightens rapidly, it indicates silver outperforming gold. That phase often precedes strong directional moves. And then there's the deficit data. Industry analysts project another annual supply shortfall. Not the first, not the second. Consecutive years of global consumption exceeding mine production. Deficits are often absorbed quietly through above-ground inventory drawdowns. But inventories are not infinite. So ask yourself, what happens when exchange inventories decline? Export controls tighten. Industrial demand remains inflexible. Geopolitical uncertainty intensifies. Banks accumulate. And futures markets reopen into global volatility. Markets rarely send this many aligned signals at once. And when they do, the resulting move is rarely modest. To really understand what's happening right now, you have to zoom out before you zoom in. Silver didn't wake up one morning and decide to explode higher. This move didn't begin with a single headline or one political event. It has been building quietly for years, underneath the surface. While most investors were distracted by tech stocks, crypto rallies, and central bank policy debates, for a long time, Silver was treated like an afterthought. Gold was the serious monetary metal. Silver was the volatile cousin. It moved fast, corrected hard, and rarely stayed in the spotlight for long. Institutions largely ignored it. Pension funds barely allocated to it. Mainstream analysts mentioned it only when it spiked dramatically. But beneath that indifference, something fundamental was shifting. First came the steady rise in industrial demand. Silver is not just a precious metal, it's an industrial necessity. Every solar panel requires it, every advanced circuit board uses it. Electric vehicles, medical equipment, high-efficiency batteries, 5G infrastructure, all of it depends on silver's conductivity and antimicrobial properties. Unlike many raw materials, silver has very few effective substitutes at scale. At the same time, global electrification accelerated. Governments pushed renewable energy targets. Corporations committed to decarbonization. Emerging markets expanded infrastructure. All of that translated into one simple reality: more silver consumption every single year. Now contrast that with supply. Silver mining is capital intensive and slow to expand. Most silver is produced as a byproduct of mining other metals like copper, lead, and zinc. That means silver supply doesn't always respond directly to silver prices. Even if silver doubles, miners don't instantly double production. New projects take years to permit, finance, and build. Environmental reviews stretch timelines even further. Investors burned by previous commodity downturns have been cautious about funding aggressive expansion. So while demand kept rising, supply growth remained constrained. For a while, the imbalance didn't seem urgent. Above-ground inventories acted as a buffer. Exchanges held metal in vaults. ETFs accumulated large stockpiles. As long as traders settled contracts in cash and rolled futures forward, the system appeared stable. But stability can be misleading. Gradually, delivery requests began increasing. Instead of closing positions financially, more participants opted to take physical metal. When that happens, ounces leave exchange vaults, and when those ounces move into private storage, they often don't return. Month after month, inventories edged lower. At first, skeptics dismissed it. It's normal fluctuation, they said. There's plenty of metal. And for a time, they were right. The system functioned. Price volatility remained contained within familiar ranges. Then macro uncertainty intensified. Global debt levels surged to historic highs. Sovereign deficits widened. Interest rates rose, then paused, then faced political pressure. Trade relationships between major economies grew tense. Tariff disputes resurfaced. Legal battles over executive authority injected fresh unpredictability into global commerce. Whenever uncertainty rises, a capital looks for protection. Gold began climbing more aggressively. Central banks, particularly in emerging markets, increased gold reserves. Investors seeking portfolio insurance rotated into precious metals. Silver followed, but with greater speed. That's when price behavior started changing. Instead of rolling over after rallies, silver began absorbing sell-offs. Sharp intraday drops were met with aggressive buying. Technical resistance levels broke faster than expected. Corrections grew shorter in duration. The character of the market shifted from reactive to resilient. Meanwhile, international dynamics added another layer. In Asia, industrial recyclers raised bids for scrap silver. That's a key signal. Recyclers operate based on downstream demand. When they are willing to pay above global benchmarks for used material, it implies urgency among manufacturers. It suggests supply chains are tightening locally. At the same time, export regulations in major refining nations became stricter. Strategic material classifications limited which companies could ship refined silver abroad. Licensing thresholds eliminated smaller exporters from the global trade network. Fewer participants mean less flexibility in times of stress. Large corporations took notice. Instead of relying entirely on open markets, some manufacturers negotiated direct supply agreements with mining companies. Locking in production at the source reduces exposure to spot volatility, but it also removes supply from the broader trading ecosystem. Each long-term contract tightens freely available inventory. Add to that the repeated annual supply deficits reported by industry groups. For consecutive years, global consumption exceeded newly mined output. The gap was covered by drawing down existing stocks. But inventory drawdowns are not permanent solutions. They are bridges, and bridges eventually end. Now consider the psychology of the market. For decades, silver traded below its inflation-adjusted highs. Many investors viewed it as perpetually undervalued. Others dismissed it as chronically disappointing. But when price begins to trend decisively, perception changes. Momentum attracts attention. Attention attracts capital. The gold-silver ratio began compressing, a historical signal that silver was outperforming gold. In previous cycles, sustained ratio compression preceded some of silver's strongest bull phases. As price approached prior resistance zones, volatility increased. But instead of collapsing, the market consolidated and pushed higher again. That kind of behavior often indicates institutional participation rather than purely retail speculation. And here's the key. None of these developments happened in isolation. Industrial demand rising, mine supply constrained, exchange inventories declining, export channels tightening, corporate offtake agreements increasing, geopolitical uncertainty escalating, central bank gold accumulation reinforcing precious metal sentiment, ratio compression signaling silver leadership, individually manageable trends, together transformative forces. Markets don't move in straight lines. They move when enough pressure builds that repricing becomes unavoidable, and repricing rarely happens gradually once momentum shifts. What we are witnessing now is the convergence of structural supply constraints and accelerating demand within a politically unstable global environment. That combination doesn't guarantee a specific price target tomorrow, but it does change the long-term trajectory. Silver is no longer behaving like a forgotten asset drifting sideways. It is behaving like a strategic resource under increasing global competition. And when a market transitions from ignored to strategic, price is only the first thing that changes. The narrative changes next. Then participation changes, and once participation broadens, cycles can accelerate far beyond what most models initially predict. That is the stage being set right now. Not overnight hype, not a single catalyst, a multi-year buildup reaching critical mass. And when critical mass is reached in a small, supply-constrained market, the outcome is rarely subtle. Here's the part most people are missing. What we're seeing isn't just another rally fueled by speculation. It's not social media hype. It's not short-term momentum chasing headlines. It's a structural repricing driven by tightening supply, persistent demand, and rising global instability, all converging at the same time. Silver's market is relatively small compared to global equities, bonds, or even gold. That means it doesn't take trillions of dollars to move it. When capital rotates into silver in meaningful size, the price responds quickly, and sometimes violently. Now combine that sensitivity with declining available inventory. When more futures participants choose physical delivery over cash settlement, metal leaves exchange vaults. That reduces registered supply. If this trend continues into major delivery months, pressure builds rapidly. The paper market can expand contracts infinitely. Physical silver cannot be printed. At the same time, industrial users are signaling urgency. When recyclers pay premiums above global spot prices for scrap silver, that tells you downstream buyers are competing aggressively for supply. Scrap markets are often early warning systems. They react before official statistics catch up. Premiums at that level suggest tightness that isn't fully reflected in international benchmarks yet. Then layer in export controls and strategic material classifications. When refining nations limit which companies can ship silver abroad, global supply chains become less flexible. Fewer exporters mean reduced shock absorption when demand spikes. That increases the likelihood of regional price dislocations, and those dislocations eventually feed back into global pricing. Now consider the macro backdrop. Trade tensions remain elevated. Legal rulings affecting tariffs create policy uncertainty. Political rhetoric points toward escalation rather than compromise. In that environment, gold benefits first as a monetary hedge, but silver often follows with greater percentage gains once momentum builds. The gold-silver ratio has already begun compressing. Historically, sustained compression phases have coincided with strong silver outperformance cycles. When gold establishes higher ground and confidence in the metal complex grows, silver's smaller market cap allows it to accelerate faster. This is the critical insight. Silver doesn't need a dramatic supply collapse to move sharply higher. It only needs persistent deficits combined with incremental demand growth. If annual consumption continues exceeding mine production and above-ground inventories keep declining, equilibrium pricing must adjust upward over time. Yes, volatility will remain intense. Margin requirement hikes, regulatory adjustments, or temporary geopolitical de-escalation could trigger pullbacks. A 5 to 10% correction would not invalidate the broader structure. But those events treat symptoms, not the underlying imbalance. The core imbalance is this. Supply growth is slow and capital intensive. Industrial demand is rigid and expanding. Exchange inventories are trending lower. Export pathways are tightening. Monetary uncertainty is rising. When those forces align, repricing becomes not just possible, but probable. In previous cycles, silver's strongest advances began when skepticism was still widespread. The move accelerated before consensus adjusted. By the time mainstream coverage intensified, a large portion of the upside had already occurred. That doesn't guarantee immediate triple-digit prices. Markets don't move in straight lines. But the structural foundation now looks stronger than at any point in recent years. This isn't about hype. It's about math. When demand persistently exceeds supply in a strategically important, financially sensitive asset, price eventually reflects that reality, and the adjustment phase may only be getting started. Now I want your perspective. Do you believe industrial demand alone can sustain current momentum? Or is monetary uncertainty the primary driver? Where do you see the gold-silver ratio heading over the next year? Continued compression? Stabilization? Reversal? How do you evaluate export restrictions and regional premiums? Temporary distortions or signs of deeper fragmentation? Most importantly, if volatility intensifies, do you interpret pullbacks as weakness or opportunity? Markets reward preparation. The investors who benefit most are those who analyze structural trends before headlines confirm them. If you follow precious metals closely, continue tracking. Exchange inventory reports, delivery statistics, regional pricing spreads, export policy changes, central bank reserve data. These indicators often signal shifts before price reacts fully. Share your outlook, debate the data, challenge assumptions. The more perspectives we evaluate, the clearer the broader picture becomes. Because whether silver reaches triple digits quickly or gradually, one fact is undeniable. The conversation around precious metals is changing, and that change matters. We began with a simple observation. Aggressive sell-offs are no longer holding. Each attempt to push prices lower is met with resilient demand. Each structural pressure point reinforces the next. Inventories decline, premiums appear, policies tighten, ratios compress. The coming sessions, especially as major international markets fully reopen and react, could provide confirmation of whether this alignment continues. Watch the resistance levels, watch delivery volumes, watch international spreads. If momentum sustains and structural data remains firm, the path higher becomes increasingly clear. If volatility strikes, remember the foundation beneath it. Markets move in waves, structural shifts move in cycles. Right now, the cycle appears to be turning. The question is not whether volatility will occur, it will. The question is whether the broader repricing has only just begun. Stay informed, stay analytical, and above all, stay aware of the forces shaping this market beneath the surface. Because when structural imbalance meets synchronized demand, price does not drift, it redefines itself.